Hey guys, and welcome back to Hoosier Hardware. Today we're talking about this PC. This is a budget build featuring a Ryzen 5 1600 and a 4GB version of the RX 480. So we're going to talk about the build process a little bit, go through, especially talking a little bit about why this case continues to be my budget option case, and then we're going to give you some gaming benchmarks as well. So stay tuned after the little intro break here. So every now and then I like to build a PC around one particular used parts deal that really just catches my eye and gives me a great value for my investment, and this is one of those such cases. This PC actually has a couple of used deals that are just really good ones. We're going to start off with the basic one, and this is a card I've actually had hanging around for a while now, and I've been looking to actually get it into something that I can put together and sell, and that is this RX 480 4GB card. Now, the 480s don't give you quite the performance that 580s tend to do, but they are very close there with very similar power requirements, and this Sapphire one was one that was used in the past for mining that I picked up on eBay for just $65, and I had to reflash the stock BIOS, and once I did, everything has been running just smoothly since, and I put it through plenty of gaming testing here as well to make sure this card is stable, and it seems to be perfectly fine. It just had a different VBIOS flash for mining, so that was a great pickup. And then the other nice pickup that I had here was the Ryzen 1600 CPU paired with this 750 watt power supply, and I got the pair of those including the CPU cooler for just $80, and that was a situation where the Ryzen 5 1600 was listed at $80, I offered $60. The person accepted that offer and then said, hey, I have a power supply, here's what it is, and I said, I'll toss you an extra $20 for that, because new power supplies right now, at least in the United States, are sort of like $30 or $35 for one that's functional, and this one is definitely more than functional. Now on the storage front, we do have this 1TB hard drive in here, and this one actually comes from that lot of 10 hard drives I tested a while back, where I got 10 1TB hard drives for $100. So effectively this thing cost me right at $10. And then actually below that GPU we have an SSD. It's a SATA 3 M.2 drive, 128 gigabytes. I got it for just shy of $20 brand new. So I look at that as a really nice way to give some fast boot storage to whoever buys this PC, and maybe put one or two of your favorite games on there, and then you can run everything else off of this hard drive, which actually this particular hard drive is one of the better ones from that lot. It seems to be in very good shape. And that's really where the used deals ran out on me, and sometimes the used market works this way. About a week after I put this thing together, I found a motherboard that I could have used in this build for $40 on the Facebook Marketplace, but instead I went with the MSI B350M Bazooka motherboard, which is a really solid motherboard, but it's about as cheap as I could find on the readily available channels that could get it to me in plenty of time for Christmas. And this thing cost me right around $70, so definitely not a great value deal there on the motherboard, but it did give me those 4 DIMM slots that I was really looking for, because I only wanted to put 8 gigabytes of DDR4 memory in this thing to start, so whoever buys it can very easily upgrade that to 16 gigabytes. The RAM itself cost me a little over $30. It's running at 66 megahertz. And the case, it's about $35 shipped. This is the Deep Cool Matrix 30, has a tempered side glass panel, which I don't have right now, so you can see in the case a little bit better. But it's one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, readily available tempered side glass panel case that you can find, and it's usually right around $35 on Newegg. And yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much the build all put together and good to go. I will mention that we do have these RGB fans though. Those cost me, I got a 3-pack, which I can only put 2 in this system, but I got a 3-pack with a fan controller down here in the basement of the case, or sort of under the hard drive here, for just $20 on Amazon. There's actually a lot of these really good looking RGB fans. Most of them just come with a remote of some kind. You really can't change the fan speeds. Fortunately, these ones are advertised as quiet, and I can attest they are pretty quiet fans, so no big issue there, and it does get air moving through the case. And the real reason that I added a $20 fan kit to this system is basically for marketability. RGB just sells systems, especially when you have an open side glass panel like this where you can see everything in the case. I found that the better a PC looks and the more customizable you can make those RGB elements, then the PCs actually do tend to sell themselves a little bit better than something like ugly cases or those Dell Optiplexes. So all told, I am in about $335 for this PC, including everything in there right now, which is definitely not the best price to performance I've ever put together. It's not even really close to the best, but it is a really solid option, and it is leaving me just a little bit of room here for a profit to be made, especially through the holiday season as people are reaching out for PCs to buy their loved ones, kids, whatever the case may be. But there is a little bit of money yet to be made in this system, at least I believe that. And yeah, it's a pretty solid little system here, but we do have to put it through some testing here. So let's hop over to the graphs of the benchmarks, and then we'll come back for a little bit of wrap up. Starting off with Fortnite at 1080p high settings, and all these games are going to be at 1080p high settings. We saw an average FPS of 98, 1% low at 72, and a 0.1% low at 39. So needless to say, with Fortnite at least, this PC is in great shape and doing very, very nicely. Next up was Metro Exodus at 1080p high settings again, except this time no tessellation. We saw an average FPS of 89, a 1% low of 53, and a 0.1% low of 42. And anecdotally, the gameplay was quite smooth. And if you're a little bit bothered by that 1% low being below 60 FPS, you can easily boost that number by dropping settings just a little bit further, just in case you're trying to really get that over 60. Resident Evil 2 Remake was next up, and this game saw extremely good performance, no stutters, hitches, or anything like that in the opening level here. We had an average FPS of over 100 at 102, 1% low at 85, and a 0.1% low at 61. So again, a very nice experience here. And the last game we had here was The Outer Worlds, and this game was a little bit disappointing at high settings. We saw an average FPS of 55, a 1% low of 38, and that 0.1% low is clear down there at 15. I did see a little bit of trouble with this game with stuttering. I do think that dropping down settings a little bit or playing with those settings could smooth that out just a little bit, but this game is definitely showing where the RX 480 in particular is having some struggles keeping up with a title that's as demanding as this one is. So the conclusion here is really, really basic. Once again, just like pretty much all these used PCs I put together, this is targeted at a 1080p gaming rig. It's not really targeted for something above 1080p. That RX 480 though will do a great job of giving you roughly 60 FPS in pretty much any modern title. You might have to play with some settings in some really demanding games. Right now, The Outer Worlds is one of the more demanding games that I've seen, so you do have to play with the settings a little bit if you really want to hit that locked 60 FPS mark. And then in esports titles, you're going to see well over 60 FPS, especially if you even run things lighter than your Fortnites of the world. If you're running like Rocket League or Overwatch, you're going to be able to hit those higher refresh rates very, very easily with this PC. And although it's not the top end of things right now, because it is featuring that Ryzen 5 1600, you really aren't gonna need to upgrade the CPU for several more years to come. Now, sure, you will get performance boost from upgrading the CPU, but this CPU, I would not be surprised if it's still a competent gaming CPU 5 or even 6, 7, 8 years down the line, just because now that games are taking more and more advantage of those higher cores and higher thread count CPUs, even though the first generation of Ryzen CPUs isn't necessarily on par with Intel as far as IPC goes, it does have cores and threads for days, and with 6 cores and 12 threads, a Ryzen 5 1600 is going to be able to keep you up and running for a while yet. Now, the first thing that someone's going to need to upgrade with this PC as they go on gaming in the future, especially if they like to game on AAA titles, is going to be that GPU, because eventually the RX 480, the RX 580s, especially those 4GB ones, will not be able to support AAA titles at 1080p anymore, but it's even still got probably a couple few years left in it of solid 1080p gaming at 60 FPS. So this is a really, really solid system for the price. Like I said, not the best I've ever put together, but definitely a solid one. But of course, I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this system? How do you feel about the aesthetic of it? Do you like what's going on with it? What would you upgrade first with this system? Because this system does have a lot of room for upgrade. The power supply will support a much stronger GPU. The motherboard will support Ryzen 3000 CPUs. You have a little bit more expansion space for storage, both with 2.5-inch drives, 3.5-inch drives. So this thing's got all the bones to be a really powerful gaming PC, so I do want to hear from you guys and know what you would be upgrading as well. And as always, if you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and comment. All those things are very helpful for the channel. You can follow me both on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.